Blog Talk Radio.
This is the Donelson Files. Tom Donelson with CoCo. I am the chairman of America's PAC, the project director and research associate with Per America's Majority Foundation. And CoCo, you take it away.
Hey guys, what's up? This is CoCo. I'm a writer, producer, among other things, and I also co-host the show every Tuesday and Wednesdays.
Well, like I said, we got quite a bit to talk about because what we're going to do here tonight is, I'm going to have you begin, I'm going to have you put on your political strategies hat.
All right.
Yeah. And basically say, okay, if the Democrats push for impeachment, what's the political impact? But kind of put that in the back of your mind. We do the latest in the campaign. There was an article in the LA Times that kind of struck me. I thought we'd talk about that. Then we got several other interesting stories that caught my eye, plus some very strange stories that call it, life in the 21st century in the United States.
Uh-huh.
But before I do that, I got to tell you, this weekend in Madison Square Garden, there was a heavyweight championship fight. Now, here's the thing. You're Andy Rios, a Mexican-American fighter. I think he's based on L.A. And 4 weeks ago, he gets a phone call and says, okay, the guy that was supposed to fight the champion, well, he tested positive for drugs. So we want you to come to Madison Square Garden and fight the almost undisputed champion of the world. Now, Rios has only lost one fight. Again, it was a fight against Joseph Parker, who's a boxer out of New Zealand. He went over to New Zealand, lost a majority decision. So he has a decent record, but still, the guy is like 4 inches smaller than the champion, Anthony Joshua. He has got a reach of about 8 inches less. And if you ever see this guy in the ring, he's got a belly. He's got a flabby belly. He looks like the kind of guy who should be serving bars drinks at a bar. He's not a guy you expect to be fighting for the heavyweight championship of the world. So he's got that, what I call the flabby belly look. Nothing, nothing buff about this guy. And he's a 20-1 underdog. But still,
wow.
Everything you would say going against this guy. Yeah. And the thing about sports, every so often the unexpected happens. The first couple rounds were even. Okay, Joshua knocks Ruiz down in the opening minutes of the third round. And you're probably thinking, okay, the fight's going to be over pretty shortly. And Joshua goes in for the kill, and he gets nailed with a Ryu's right hand. And Joshua goes down. Then Joshua goes down a second time. And all of a sudden, you're like looking at this fight and you're thinking, wait a minute. This guy could actually win the fight. He's knocked down the champion twice after being knocked down. And the rest of the fight, he just kept the pressure on. You just see this kind of plump fella just throwing punches all over the place against this, 6'6", boxer from Great Britain who's just, like I said, this guy's built like Hercules. He's got the build. He looks like a fighter. But in the seventh round, Reed sent him down twice. And finally the referee stops the fight. And the reason I bring this story up because it's the unexpected. And sometimes in life, the unexpected happens. And in this particular case, here's a guy who's a 21 underdog. He's basically there to be an opponent. he's there to make a good show, but Joshua is supposed to win this fight easily, set himself up for some big fights down the road with a couple other undefeated heavyweights. Everything's supposed to be set. This is the first time he fights in America. He fills out the Madison Square Garden, and everybody's expecting a coronation. What they're not expecting is Ruiz to beat this guy to a pulp.
Right. So,
yeah.
I actually am a huge boxing fan.
Yeah.
I even watch WrestleMania. I watch UFC. I'm a huge UFC fan. And so it's always, whenever somebody thinks somebody's going to win, like the underdog, they never do. It's like very rare, I think. Yeah. With the whole Mayweather Conor fight, everyone was like so sure Conor was going to win, because he's the underdog. He was a UFC fighter. And you guys have to realize, UFC and boxing, they're not the same. They obviously have a whole different set of rules. So it wasn't a complete shock when he lost. And let's face it, Conor is a POS. He's kind of like a piece of crap. He's very. Yeah. Mayweather has an ego. That's not even like me saying he doesn't, but he has the right to deserve. He has the right to that ego. Mayweather has that right. Conor, big show off. It's always getting arrested. So for me, I always root for who I think is best, and I will always vote Mayweather. I think he's great. And you're talking about this guy who I actually do not know, and it's just like, that's what I love about boxing, is that the fans are so loyal, and it's like Barcelona, like, oh my God, like, I'm a huge football fan, football as in English, and I am Barcelona all the way, but I'm also Manchester. So it's the fans. It's the fans as well.
When you say Manchester, are you saying Manchester United, Manchester
Manchester United. Manchester United all the way. All the way. And so it's just, it's not a sport where, like, a lot of them are rigged. Come on, let's be kind of realistic about that. Most of them are rigged, but it's just, if you've ever seen a live match, it is so thrilling. It is so cool, and it's like, I don't know, there's nothing else you can say about it. It's just a very cool sport, I think. It's bloody, and I love it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you, because, let me put this to you. I am a member of the Boxing Writers Association of America. So I was even on the board for a while, and so I've been ringside, and I've got, like I say, tons of pictures of which I've been ringside too, where because I would always bring my camera with me, and I remember going. I'll tell you what, the most interesting, some of the best pictures I ever took was and the mixed martial arts, they had a league called the Fight League, International Fight League, and they would have teams where cities versus city, that type of deal. And I went down to the Quad City, Iowa, and one of the most interesting pictures, and one of these, I think I'm gonna have to find it and put it up on the Donelson Files website and put it on because you literally see the guys grappling in the corner, and right behind them is the big screen TV where you see the same picture. One of the neatest pictures I ever took. But, and the other thing too, because here's the thing, because I have a black belt in karate, and I've done some amateur kickboxing, when I was going through my karate days. And I trained with professional kickboxers. I had a couple guys who were on ESPN in the early 80s. And let me tell you, these guys, they were good. I remember one time, doing a 3-round exhibition, and this guy was just peppering me. And the only reason why I'm standing up because he was pulling his punches. If he wanted to knock me out in 10 seconds, he would have had me out in 10 seconds. But the problem you run into with boxing, the problem Conor had against Mayweather is he agreed to boxing rules. And Connors is, and let's be blunt, Mayweather's one of the best boxers in the world. To me, it would be interesting to see what happens if you have a fighter like Mayweather with the great hands. What would happen if, let's say, if somebody tried to, if somebody got on the inside of him and tried to grapple with him, how he would react? Because that's where the mixed martial arts, the number of times, in the martial arts where literally it's the ground game. And if you don't, and a lot of boxers have no experience with getting on the ground. And so that to me would be one of the more interesting aspects if you have a top flight MMA fighter and a top flight boxer and just say, okay, guys, you can kick, you can punch, you can grab, you can wrestle, and see what would happen.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. So did Reagan. I heard Reagan in the background.
I know. I apologize for that. Yeah, everybody knows who Reagan is. But no, like for me, I whenever I go out to like a sports bar or I go out and because I love going out and watching sports.
Yeah.
I love going to the Laker games. It's like literally the Staples Center is like 3 blocks where I'm at. And for me, there's nothing better than to actually go see it live. Because I give it, if you like to watch it on TV, like, you just can't even imagine what it's like live. You don't even have to be into the sport, but once you see, like, UFC or boxing or something of the same stature, you just become a fan automatically. That's what happened to me. Like, I used to hate boxing. I used to be like, oh, my God, the sport is so stupid. And then I went to a boxing match, and I really, really got into it. Same with, like, WWE. I'll go to the WWE shows, and it's, like, thrilling. It is like, it's like a theater experience.
It is. Not only that, but, I mean, the fans are crazy. That's what really
makes the fans are nuts. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
Yeah. And so, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, it's, that's part of the whole experience to me in a sporting event.
Well, it is an experience. It's a huge experience.
Yeah. Hold on to that thought, and we'll be right back. This is the Donelson Files, Tom Donelson, CoCo Konski.
If you want to hear another view of the latest developments in Trump's Washington, listen to the Dr. Larry Show. Every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Dr. Larry is a former businessman, entrepreneur, college president, and author who provides background and context for current events and trends in politics, education, foreign policy, and religion from a conservative perspective. Tune in and hear the other side as Dr. Larry talks with Washington insiders exclusively on blogtalkradio.com and the podcast at the BatchelorPadNetwork.com.
Yeah, that's the Dr. Larry Show on the Batchelor Pad Radio Network. We'll follow the Donelson Files tomorrow. So stay tuned to that. And this is Tom Donelson, CoCo Konski, the Donelson Files on the Batchelor Pad Radio Network. You can follow us on Twitter at the Donelson Files and DonelsonTFiles.com. You can get on our internet as well. So every so often we'll have some articles, we'll have things of features. Occasionally I will have Dr. Larry, some of his articles, and articles that to me I find of interest. Of course, and also about the fight we talked about, the Ruiz fight. That will be up if it's not already up already. So again, DonelsonTFiles.com. All right, before we go into the rest of the show, you're right about the fans. I mean, the experience is the fans.
Right. I mean, okay, like I have a short story to go with that. So I was dating this guy, and I was like a long time ago. And he had a grandkid, and so his grandkid was like really into like wrestling, and so I thought it'd be really cool if I took him to go see a WWE show with John Cena. That kid's eyes, the minute like I got him the tickets, the minute we went, it was like it really, you could really tell how someone is a true fan, because this kid would not stop talking about the event for like a year. And he actually, like, because of that, wanted to become a wrestler, and I thought that was very, very cute. And like I said, like, it's a huge experience. Like, if you guys have like any like opportunity or chances to go see a wrestling show, even if like you're not into it, because I was not into this, and it just took for me to go to one show, and I was like, yeah, I could definitely see why the fans are like this, and the fans are so loyal, and that's the thing is you have all these like it's a really different atmosphere, you know, being around people who are enjoying the same things as you, and you bond with that. And that's why I prefer going to see live shows. I mean, you bond with sports, TV, whatever, but when you're there, you know, really out there, and you're just like, you know, watching this amazing. It's a performance, pretty much, but with a lot of blood and like punches to the face. It's great. I love it.
Yeah. No, like I said, I've always loved combat sports in general because, like I say, I've been in the martial arts, but I've covered boxing. I mean, I've been a boxing aficionado for, you know, decades, and I've covered the sport live, and it's
right.
And it's like, and I gotta say, it's just, again, it's just an experience in and of itself. Okay, now we're gonna switch gears a little bit. I'm gonna have you put on your political strategist hat.
Oh, do I have to?
Oh, yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Okay. All right. Let's get on with it.
Okay, here's the thing. Okay. If you're advising the Democrats today, do you say go for it on the impeachment, or you say, let's take a step back? What would be your advice?
That is a tricky question. So I know Pelosi has been pretty much don't impeach, and I don't think it would actually happen. I really don't, because if we impeach Trump, who's like, to me, Satan in disguise, we get even worse. We get double Lucifer in Mike Pence. So, you know, do I want him to be impeached? Like, yes, he's a piece of crap. Like, I do not like Trump. But I think Mike Pence is even worse, because I think Mike Pence is like a true, you know, good old Southern boy who, you know, hates the gays, all this stuff. And I think Trump basically just panders to his party. I don't truly think he really believes like half the stuff he says he does. Or maybe he does. I don't know. But I know for a fact Mike Pence actually believes the stuff that he preaches. And I think Mike Pence is 20 times worse than Trump will ever be. And that is my opinion.
But here's the thing to me would be is this, because I'd be, like I said, I'm not going to get into the details of of the Mueller report and all these other reports, because we've done that before. And unlike some people, I've actually read all of these reports, so I know where the trend's been going for the past 2 years. Here's the thing, and this is the point I would ask you, is that, and this is the point I want you to kind of get a comment at, because here's the point I would think, is this: if you spend your time talking about impeachment and you go out and you push the impeachment angle, I think, the one example I think of is the Republicans did this in 1998 with Bill Clinton, and they almost lost their House majority. They lost seats in the House in a midterm election that they normally should have won. They nearly lost their majority. And the thing comes, and when the economy is doing well, and certainly that's what happened in 1998, it was doing well. I think after a while people got sick of it, but they also said, is this worth impeaching somebody over? And I think when you look at the Mueller report, once they said we can't find any collusion, that ended it. And the obstruction of justice stuff, and like I said, I'm not going to, is questionable. I'll be nice and say it's questionable, but I will say, Barr took the right position. So here's the thing with the Democratic Party. Every time you talk about this, every time you push it, you go in Congress and you have, my question is, it takes the oxygen out of the rest of the Democratic primary. Because what are people going to talk about? What are the candidates going to talk about? Here's, they're going to talk impeachment. Trump should be impeached. And again, I don't think Biden has gotten a position on this yet. If it is, it's more of, I think, the Pelosi position. But if everybody's just talking impeachment, here's what they're not talking. They're not talking health care. They're not talking foreign affairs. They're not talking taxes. They're not talking, other issues out there. They're just talking impeachment. It's like it takes the oxygen out. The more you talk about it. And what I've noticed in some of these polls is that, Trump is stabilized in many of these polls. I mean, I think there was a poll at Harvard-Harris that had him up 48%. But when you look inside, you look at, like the economy, he was ranked 62%. Hey, we like what you're doing with the economy. You may not be a good guy, but we like what you do with the economy. And these and so the question comes into play is, do you make this guy, I mean, it's just like in the case of Clinton, after a while, people just said, this is enough is enough. Let's just move on. And it didn't help the Republicans at all. And I just see, to me, this is an oxygen-sucking move, in my view.
No, I mean, I understand why people want him impeached, but my point is, we impeach him. We're stuck with Pence, who's like 10 times worse than Trump is. I mean, Pence really believes his party's platform. He's very, odd and just dangerous, in my opinion. And, we get rid of Trump, and guess what? We're stuck with Pence. And I don't think, half the people realize that's what happens when you impeach a president. The vice president takes over. And do you really want Mike Pence as president? I know what your answer is, but I'm asking the audience, do you want Mike Pence as the remaining president?
Yeah. Well, that's the interesting thing. Yeah, I mean, but here's the other aspect of Pence, too, is that, I personally like the guy. And here's the thing. He's competent. I mean, say what you want to say. The guy is competent. He knows what he's doing. He's been a governor. And he's been a successful governor. So he knows he's also been a congressman. And he's also been, like I say, he was a talk show host, and so he's been in the private sector side of the equation as well. And so, the guy, so I guess the question is, who would you rather run against in 2020? Because if Pence runs as the president, I'll make you dime to, nickel. I guarantee you there'll be, who he's going to call up immediately for VP? Hey, Nikki Haley, what are you doing? Nothing at the moment, Mike. Okay, you want to be my VP candidate? Sure. So you're going to have a Pence Haley. You'll end up with a Pence Haley, which, I don't think would be a pretty strong ticket. So it's like I say, it's an interesting question what people want, but you're right in the respect is, like I said, to me, there's not a whole lot you can invent. Because I think when I looked at the Mueller report, the more you look at it, the more you say there's nothing there. And the more you talk about it, the worse it becomes for Democrats. And one of the things, because we found this when we start talking to voters in some of our polls and stuff, is, they kind of, one thing you don't ever want to do is be the crazy party. And when you start making Trump and Pence look normal, and that's what you're doing when you have the crazies take over.
Yeah, which is scary in itself. What the hell does that tell you?
Yeah. I mean, let's go.
I want to go into a story. It just popped up on my feed.
Yeah.
Oh, good old Alabama. This is actually from a friend of mine who lives in Alabama, who is a liberal, and he sent this to me. An Alabama mayor calls for killing of LGBTQ people in this Facebook post, and I just saw the Facebook post. WTF, Alabama, WTF. And what I find even more cynical is that he did this during Pride Week. So an Alabama mayor posted comments on Facebook about killing LGBTQ people, and then he obviously tried to deny the post was his, and then finally admitted it. And his name is Mark Chambers. He's in Carbon Hill mayor in Alabama, and this is what he basically wrote. He says, "We live in a society where homosexuals lecture us on morals, transvestites lecture us on human biology, baby killers lecture us on human rights, and socialists lecture us on economics. Can't speak. it was removed, and then a Facebook friend of his commented, by giving the minority more rights than the majority, I hate to think of the country my grandkids will live in unless somehow we change, and I think that will take a revolution. And then he starts talking about, well, when we have a revolution, the only way to change it would be kill the problem out. I know it's a bad to say, but without killing them out, there's no way to fix it. And so the WBRC called Chambers, who basically first claimed the post was someone else's page, then ended the conversation abruptly. He then called back and said the comment was meant to be a private message, because that still doesn't sound as bad, right?
Yeah.
He also said, I never said anything about killing out gays or anything like that. But if we have a revolution, that's right. If it comes to a revolution in this country, then we got to do what we got to do. Again, he's been mayor since 2014 in a town of Alabama, shockingly with fewer than 2,000 people. WTF. I don't even know what to make of this. I just...
Well, yeah, I'm not going to comment because it's... I mean, like I say, the whack jobs, come out...
He's a mayor. He's not just some whack job. He's a mayor. He's a mayor in Alabama. This isn't just some, random citizen, posting vile crap. This guy works in a public office. Yeah.
Well, and hopefully the next election, somebody will take a look at this and say, is this who we want to be?
No, come on. You can't, I'm sorry.
Well,
but you know what?
I'm going to say that I have a sneaking suspicion this is not what he campaigned on. But now that it's out in the open, you got... now they don't have any. This
was on his private page, FYI, and then someone saw it and screenshotted it, and then send it to some newspaper in Alabama. But my point is, it's since Trump became president, you can disagree with me all you want, but the races are full out and proud. Whether it's mayors or regular citizens. It's just an ongoing thing, and I'm getting so damn sick and tired of these people, because they're white pride, and that's what they are. They want to extinguish anybody that's not blonde hair and blue eyes, who has to be straight, because you got to pray the gay away. It really frustrates me, especially after our last guest that we had on, and how she had the courage to come out and transition, and we have these pieces of crap, calling for their deaths. It's unbelievable. You shouldn't even be in public office if you're acting or thinking like that.
Yeah. Hold on to that thought. We'll be right back. It's Tom Donelson, CoCo Konski with the Donelson Files on the Batchelor Pad Radio Network.
Hey, this is L.A. Batchelor reminding you, if you're looking for real discussion on sports, politics, religion, and other topics, you need to join us on Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern at WCOMFM.org, on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. at blogtalkradio.com/LA-Batchelor, and on Thursdays at the same web address. Follow us on Facebook at Pad Nation, on Twitter, Pad Nation, the number 2 at Twitter, LinkedIn, and you can email us with your requests, your comments, your concerns, anything you want at our email address at LABatchelor with a T, BATCHELOR 40@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook and Pad Nation, Instagram, and of course, if you miss any part of our broadcast, make sure you go to the BatchelorPadNetwork.com and listen and enjoy the Batchelor Pad.
This is Tom Donelson and CoCo Konski with the Donelson Files of the Batchelor Pad Radio Network. Don't forget, you can also do Twitter at Donelson Files, and DonelsonTFiles.com is the Donelson Files website. And before we go back to that subject, how is cooking with CoCo? How's that working out? Or keto with CoCo?
Mhm.
Yeah, how close are you getting your website finished up?
Oh God, if I told you guys all the crap that I'm doing right now, it's I don't have a life. Pretty soon, I'm literally working as I speak on a film right now, so I'm in between shoots. I'm actually going to be shooting, I believe it's Friday, ongoing till like Tuesday. So yeah, it's when you work in film, your schedule is not a regular 9 to 5. It's more like a 9 to like next week. You know, you never know when you're going to go on call. Like, I'll get a call where I'm going to be needed on set within, like, 30 minutes, and I have to drop everything and do it. So, yeah, that's kind of, like, on the last thing on my mind is the website at this moment. Just because I didn't realize, I always find it funny that when you're working on a film, when you don't want to work, that's when you get all the offers and all the workload. And when you want to work, there's nothing. So for me, it's like I wasn't expecting anything really except doing this one other film, and then I got like 3 or 4 different projects that I'm working on. So I have no social life, basically, is what it means.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's like I said, I want to go back because I'm like, you're absolutely with this, But, I'm going to put it in this. It'd be interesting to see what happens with this particular guy, whether or not this will be enough to get rid of him out of office. And I'm not going to.
I mean, he's just a mayor.
But the mayor's a mayor. It represents the city,
right?
And reflects on the city.
But Tom, think about it. He's a mayor of a town of less than 2,000 people. Do you really think they're really for equality and I'm sorry, and it's Alabama of all places. What I find funny about Alabama, and I don't mean to disrespect anybody who lives there, like, good for you, but, when it's like you hear these major stories on the news, and what are the major cities? It's California, Alabama, and Florida. And every time I hear a story, I'm like, I like to play this game called Guess What State It Is, and most of the time it's either Alabama or Florida. And, they want to be taken seriously, even though their entire football team sucks. But that's another story. They want to, but you have, like, all these stories come out about Alabama, and, they're not helping themselves with the reputation that they usually have. I'm sorry, but they're not, and especially in this instance.
Yeah. Now, go back to California, because it goes back to, what we were talking about with the Democratic Party. And, again, you have John Delaney, what was it, Mike Bennett, and they go up and they say, look, guys, we need to win this election. Yeah, we need to be looking at, if we're going to do health care, let's reform health care, but Medicare for all is not going to work. And, socialized, and they basically said, maybe we should quit talking about socialism. And they got booed. Now, this is the California Democratic Convention. And they got booed. And again, this, goes back to the place where we talk about, letting the crazies, in this particular case, the left, basically, because let's be blunt, if this is what you're going to talk about, again, whether you like Trump or not, compared to some of these guys, he starts looking good. And certainly when you got Democrats getting booed.
Never in a million years will Trump ever look good. Never. Yeah. Oh, you want to talk about him looking good? How about blocking the USS McCain? What was that about?
Oh,
he denied it. He denied it and denied it. And then they finally came out and said, yes, he did want it to be blocked from his view. I'm sorry.
Oh, actually,
it's not first of all number one. There's no excuse. There's no excuse for that.
No. It didn't happen because they did 24 hours later. They basically came out and said it was never covered up. It was never, nothing like that happened.
That's bullshit. I'm sorry, but that is. Come on. I mean, this man hated McCain, and he still hates him till his grave. I mean, my God, you're going to speak ill of the dead?
He hates him. It's immaterial. I agree with you, but this story, when they looked into the story, and they found out that nothing was covered up. They did not cover up the SS McCain at all.
Oh, sure. Okay.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, so.
I'm sorry, but he is such a pansy. He is such a bully, and this is how he's always been.
No, it's again the story.
It's insanity.
Was not, but the thing is this: in this particular case, the story was not correctly reported, and it should be said for that. I mean, that's not. I mean, it's one of those things where somebody said it could have happened, it must have happened, but it didn't happen. But yeah, and it goes back to I'll go back to my original point. If there's a point somewhere where if you get too far out, let me tell you. Let me take a step further. I had the chance to do a survey in a couple of states, and what we did, we surveyed women, in blue states, in blue districts, and one of the things we looked at was infanticide. I mean, you and I have had a discussion of abortion, and we said, okay, how far do you want to go? And long story short, when you got into the late-term abortion, Democrat candidates lost ground among these women. 9 to 10 points differential. Now you can say and what does that mean? Well, it means you go into like Minnesota, and you start some of these individuals, suburbanites who basically, they may be pro-choice, they don't like Trump, but when they sit back and hear some of the things that they may have heard at the California convention, if you get enough of them, will say, you know what, I'm either not going to vote or I'll hold my nose and vote for Trump. And if you get enough of them to do that, that's where you win and lose. I mean, Minnesota, for example, 44,000 votes. That's not a lot of votes to switch. And many of them are in the suburban areas or some of those blue areas. When people stay home, you lose those votes. That's the one thing we saw. Now, here's another story. Now, this came from the L.A. Times. And it goes back to a thing. Yeah. It goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where the question came into play here, of a trade war and the escalating tariffs. But it's interesting, the story, it was done by a gentleman by, I think, here, may get this. John Lee was the writer. And the point that he was kind of making was the more and this is the point I made last week, and this is why I think people should go back and look at this article, if for no other reason. The article is titled, for the U.S. and China, it's not a trade war anymore, it's something worse. It was in June 1st, 2019, and he makes some pretty interesting points, namely, once you get to beneath the surface, you got two different systems, two views of looking at the world, which, you and I discussed this a couple of weeks ago with the social media point system that China has set up. And
right.
And I thought it was a different piece, mainly because the point the guy's making is, this is not just about trade anymore, that there's a deeper philosophical thing going on where you have let's use the word clash of civilization, where you have a Chinese model and what I'm going to use the word American model, an Anglo spear model, competing worldwide and trying to basically have domination of their particular model. In other words, another potential Cold War. Yeah. And so and I think it's one of those articles, we're going to put it, make a copy of it. I'm going to link to it on the website. I'll link to it on the Twitter site. And this is the Donelson Files, Tom Donelson and CoCo Konsky on the Donelson Files and the Batchelor Pad Radio Network.
Join Barry Barnes for Locker Talk on the Batchelor Pad Network as he presents NFL news and evaluates players. Fridays at 9 a.m. Eastern at blogtalkradio.com.
Locker Talk with Barry Barnes, 9 a.m. Friday. Great show. And also don't forget other great shows in the Batchelor Pad Radio Network, in particular LA Batchelor. The Batchelor Pad will be following us as well, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And if I'm not mistaken, it looks like one of his guests is Andrew Dixon, Soccer Analyst. Plus, with LA, you're going to get news, updates, and music in between. So stay on this network, the Batchelor Pad Network, for the man himself, LA Batchelor, the Batchelor Pad Show. Okay. Now, I've got some stories, some that I think are intriguing and fascinating, and some that I think do have some interesting points. And I'm going to start with this one. A woman named Mildred Bowers. She's 102 years old, and she credits beer. She lives in South Carolina, and she credits beer for her long life. And as she says, she has one beer at 4 p.m. when everybody else is having tea and coffee or a soft drink. She has beer. And
Lord.
She'll be celebrating her 103rd birthday at the end of August. And as I say in the article, she survived, I love this, the Great Depression and outlived two husbands.
Well, good for her on that part. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that's, Maybe I should try that, except I don't like beer. I hate beer. I don't drink beer. I drink hard liquor, not beer. But, oh, my God. I've heard a similar story about a woman who's she's like 104 or something, and her long reason why she lived so long was because she avoided men all her life, which I think is a really smart thing to do nowadays. So I've heard that. I've heard the beer. I've heard, she never got married and she just avoided men her entire life, and that's why she's like 104. Well, good for her. I mean, I don't think I want to live that long, do you? This is the part of the story I really love. Ms. Bowers got the go-ahead from her doctor to drink beer on a regular basis after sharing her love for the drink with her nurses at the assisted living facility. The doctors approved, and she has her pint every day at 4 p.m. Jesus Christ.
And then, I love this. Asked whether or not other seniors should adapt this practice of having a daily beer, she said yes, if they like it. And she said, well, no, some people don't like coffee. They don't like tea. Everybody should drink what they like. And she said, to her, she drinks beer. That's her tea and coffee. So, it's some of those stories that I just find interesting. There was another story which I just saw today, where they actually did a study where they're saying if you drink 25 cups of coffee a day, it's not bad for your health. I would say to myself, well, I only drink about 3 or 4 cups of coffee, so I guess I could go ahead and drink the other 21 cups of coffee.
Oh, well, Mike, do you want to know how many drinks of coffee I drink? Okay, so this sounds so bad. I usually don't eat till like 2 or 3, and so p.m. And I stop eating around 8:30. But I will drink, and I'm not exaggerating. It's really sad. I drink about 10, 12 cups of coffee a day, like completely black, no sugar, no cream. I'll drink 12 of those babies a day, and that's what gets me through my fasting and all that. It's horrible. I mean, we're going back on the subject about that age. Do you honestly want to live to be 104? I mean, honestly, I don't. I don't want to live past 60. I want to have the time of my life. I want to have the time of my life. I want to do what I want. I smoke. I drink. I mean, people try to get me to quit smoking. I'm like, that's never going to happen. I'll smoke till the day I die. And hopefully I'll smoke in the afterlife. Who knows? But I don't want to live to be 104. Why would I? What can I possibly do in life at 104?
I would put the question in this. The answer to the question would be is this way. This woman appears to be healthy. She appears to be sharp.
Right.
And if you got those things together, and I see why not. I mean, I literally have seen people in their 60s and the 70s and their 80s who are still out there working and doing a great job, a bang-up job, having a good time of the life, and it's like
right.
And the answer to your question would be, as long as I'm healthy, I don't mind doing it, living that long.
But Tom, if I'm like 100, there'll be no men for me to like date. They'll be dead for the last 50 years. That is my problem.
Well,
okay, for people who don't know me, or everybody knows me as CoCo, and they're just like, I always get teased. Oh, you date men twice or 3 times your age, whatever. Yes, I do, and I enjoy it. And what's going to happen by the time I'm their age? They're all going to be dead. What am I left with?
Well, then that means you start reversing and go young.
No, ew, never in my life would I do. I know, be seriously, people think it's the weirdest thing, and I'm like, no, we all have our kinks, and so happen my kinks as old men. I'm sorry. Yeah. So, yesterday, I'm not kidding, I went on a date with a guy born in 1933. Okay?
That was 1928.
And it was like the best time of my life. So I will let everybody know.
Yeah, isn't this the guy you tell me does kickboxing?
Yes! No, I swear.
Here's my point. Yeah. I mean, this guy is 91 years old, and he's kickboxing.
You weren't supposed to say his real age.
Oh.
Jesus.
Wow, 33.
Great.
I mean, you're basically so you cut him off, so you make him 87. That's come on.
Right. Okay. Yes. He kickboxes. He's been kickboxing for the last 45 years, every day at 5 a.m. Every day. And let me tell you something. That man, he's more than 3 times my age, whatever. But he definitely doesn't look it. He definitely does not look it or act it. So I can understand, older people, and they like to keep active, and they like to just they don't want life to slow them down, But I'm saying I don't want to be around that age and be miserable and in pain. If I'm going to be at that age, I want to be active. I want to have this really good active lifestyle. But I don't want to be 104 in a wheelchair.
Okay, now this is one of those humor stories. It's a humor story because I know you would appreciate this story. Okay?
I will. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Noah's Ark replica owners sues insurers over rain damage.
Wait, I'm sorry. Repeat that again.
Noah's Ark replica. There's a theme park.
Oh,
that has a
yes.
Noah's Ark replica.
Yes.
Owners
Yes.
sue insurance over rain damage.
They want to have their fictional imaginary park, go ahead, but I think it's ridiculous that it's being funded by the taxpayers. And now they're claiming rain damage on Noah's Ark. Oh my God, I'm shocked.
Yeah,
I'm shocked.
I read that. I mean, the headline to me was that headline that said everything you need. It's one of those headlines. Every so often you get a headline that says everything you want. Of course, my favorite headline, classic headline of all times: headless body found in. What was it? Scripture. Yeah. The New York Post.
Oh, no. Okay, if we're going to do headlines, I'm going to tell you this one headline. This principal of the school was fired because he attended a strip club while the kids were on a field trip. So he attended the strip club next door. But I think it was nice. He was checking up on his former students. I thought that was nice.
So,
I thought that was really cool.
Here's the headline. Headless body and topless bar. That, to me, is the greatest headline ever.
I didn't do it.
Greatest headline ever. So.
It wasn't me.
But, that was always, you didn't have to read the story to know what happened.
Well, no, I kind of do, because what the hell? What do you mean headless? Head was at a strip club. Was it a decapitated head?
Yeah, some guy, got on the wrong side of somebody, lost his head, and the body was found in a strip bar, topless bar.
Oh.
All right. Now here's the other one. Yeah, I mean, this is life in the 21st century.
All right.
Is life in the 21st century here. Sex dungeon headmaster, 74, romps with his married secretary. Okay, sex dungeon headmaster.
Oh yeah.
Romps with his married secretary in a study filled with whiskey, toys, sex toys, and condoms, while making Benny Hill sounds.
While making Benny Hill sounds? Did you say while making Benny Hill sounds?
Yes.
Benny Hill. Oh my goodness.
Yes,
okay,
Benny
for
Hill,
you guys who don't know who Benny Hill, well, I think we have to explain who Benny Hill is, because half the people listening do not know. Benny Hill was a very famous English comedy actor, and he had the Benny Hill Show. Was it back 60s, 70s, around then?
Yeah.
And he was just really funny and really outrageous. Think of like a modern day Fatty Arbuckle. What? You know what? What?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
but I have so many questions. I have questions. Okay, like, did he have like a soundboard or something when they were making these noises? Like, I mean, good for the guy getting it on with his secretary, because, but what do you mean the Benny Hill noise? Like, that's what caught my eyes. I mean, the secretary, whatever, but the Benny Hill noises, what was he doing?
Okay, let me read here.
I mean, like...
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the kicker in all of this is, not only did he do all this, he embezzled money to pay for this dungeon.
That doesn't shock me. That doesn't shock me. Come on, that doesn't shock me.
Yeah, so...
Men do a lot of stupid things when they're in love. Or want sex.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I'm sorry, but that does not shock me. I know
here's the quote. The school site manager said during the summer holidays he heard sounds coming from the gentleman's office that he likened or compared to the Benny Hill Show. So I have no idea. I mean, it was...
Oh, my God. That's so awkward. Was he English?
Yeah.
It would make a lot of sense if this guy was English. Okay.
Absolutely.
That makes sense now.
This is he is English. He is English. So, okay. And this story, we're going to kind of talk about these two stories a little bit more tomorrow, because I want to kind of talk about aspects of the media. So I'm not going to get too far into these stories. But the first story, I love this. I mean, this is one of those stories where editor-in-chief of a major news website learns how the U.S. government works. This guy is like the main editor of Business Insider, but I guess it's a business blog. It's a business, and he fired up. I mean, he actually admitted this. He said, "I only learned this week that all 435 members of the House of Representatives are up for re-election every 2 years. That's insane." Then he goes on, and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. You did not know that every 2 years your local congressman is up for re-election? And you're the editor?
What
of a major
country is this?
This is the U.S.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah. And no, I mean, like the guy tweeted this. I mean, he put this on Twitter and said, I'm super embarrassed. I'm not sure which is even worse.
Hey, well, you know what? At least he had the balls to admit it. I'll give him that.
I'll give them that. I'm not going to, I'm going to say this. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, okay, look, we live in a society where we have enough trouble with the media and news and getting the story right when you have an editor who hires people, including those you have to assume that have political, doing the political side of the equation.
Uh-huh.
And this is your boss, and I'm thinking, I don't. This is part of me that says, are you seriously going to tell me you did not know this? I mean, you went to high school, you went to college, you may even have a graduate degree, and I'm assuming that every 2 years you pick up the fact that there's elections in your neck of the wood, and you're unaware. I don't know. It's just one of those stories I look at and say to myself, number one, the guy's not the most, yet you say, this guy's an editor. And number two, why would you admit you're that stupid?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah.
That is something I would not know.
Yeah. And like I say, tomorrow I'm going to save the story for tomorrow, but it was recently. I guess you had the Nancy Pelosi video that was I guess she looked slurred and whatever. And it's going to be interesting because we're going to have this discussion and put this down for tomorrow. The Daily Beast doxes the blogger of a Nancy Pelosi video. And you don't like being doxed. And in this particular case, we'll discuss it further because I think what the Daily Beast did was wrong and out of line. But it's something we need to talk about. But while I'm at it, you speak of Florida, we are going to conclude over the next couple of minutes with Florida stories. You're sitting on the toilet, and a python slithers out and bites you.
I saw that. OMG. I've actually never seen a snake aside from in the zoo. And I know out here in Los Angeles where I go hiking, there's tons of rattlesnakes. And I've never seen any of them. And I'm really happy. But I cannot imagine if I'm in the bathroom and I see one coming out of the toilet. Oh my God. The police would be at my house and I wouldn't even have to call them. That's how bad it would be. Oh my God. That's awful.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at. It's one of those. I guess the question I have to be saying it almost would be like, I'm not ever going to sit on the toilet again in Florida after reading a story like this, or you got to sit back and check everything twice.
Right,
and then my
what?
final, now my final crazy story. Is a couple of, it starts off, the first article in the line says, they do say at Burger King, have it your own way. Well, a career criminal and her girlfriend attacked 2 Burger King employees for refusing to give them free French fries.
I saw that. And the woman looks like Donald Trump. It's true. Okay. Yes, she does. It's Donald Trump in a blonde wig. It's Donald Trump in a blonde wig. I swear to God. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
she looks like either a WWE wrestler or Donald Trump in drag.
Well, let me put it this way. She's not going to win any beauty contests.
I'm telling you, it's Donald Trump in drag. It's Donald Trump in drag. No, I swear to you, I saw that picture and I literally thought it was Donald Trump in a drag costume. I really did.
Yeah.
Or a wrestler.
Here's the thing. Well, let me put it this way. So she said, hey, some of the employees said, hey, you don't get free fries.
Oh my God. I don't want carbs that bad.
Yeah, Then, they hopped over, and then while she was at it, since she wasn't going to get the free fries, she went in and decided to rob the place.
Lovely.
And of course, there's a video of all this, so These are not two
I
of the
have not
brightest
seen. I did not see the video. Oh, but I want to watch the video now.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they must have been because they said both women kicked and punched, according to the police, in the video. So there's actually a video of them doing all of this. So,
well,
and
I
she's
guess
now
people will
being
do
held,
anything for carbs.
Yeah, but I thought to myself, now that is a crazy story. And as you stated, it's the state of Florida, your favorite state. So
I told you.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, it is hitting that point at 6 p.m. It's that time of the night when we say goodnight. This is the Donelson Files with Tom Donelson, CoCo Konski. And we will see you tomorrow on the Batchelor Pad Radio Network. And now it's time to turn this over to our good friend, L.A. Batchelor, and the Batchelor Pad Show.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to another edition of The Pad. We thank you for joining us as always. And here's hoping you had a very good day wherever you are. And we hope to make your evening empowering, enlightening, educational, and a whole lot of fun. 646-929-0130, the number to get in touch with us. If you decide to dial in, you can do so. Also, you can hit us up on Facebook and at Pad Nation, or on Twitter at Pad Nation 2. And we thank you for checking in. Speaking of checking in, want to bring in my guest. Of course, he's a soccer analyst and writer. The game he loves so much. He is Andrew Dixon. And Andrew, appreciate you coming on as always, sir.
Thanks for having me on to talk about the beautiful game.
Absolutely. So just looking at this game with Liverpool taking this match, this championship match, two widely talented teams. Were you surprised by anything that happened and sort of the plot that went down? I mean, shots were pretty even, and I think the difference is the shots on target. The possessions were definitely more on one side than the other. But what did you see? What did you think about this game?
Well, I think I was most surprised about what I didn't see, and that was really a really quality game. We expected that, these two teams who, are very talented teams, as you mentioned, we had some tremendous comebacks from both of them, especially where Liverpool was concerned to come back, from 3 goals down against in the first leg against Barcelona to come back and win that. And then for Tottenham to go to Amsterdam after being down, 2 goals and then coming back and winning it at the end, expected that, they would, these two teams, playing in the English Premier League, yes, they know each other well, but you figured these two teams would really get after it, and we didn't see much of that on Saturday, unfortunately. It's been said that the early penalty called against Musa Sissoko kind of messed the game up, and I don't know if I buy into that so much because, yes, all right, so it was an early goal, and you did notice that Liverpool really kind of sat back for most of the first half. In fact, oftentimes you'll hear about a team sitting back that they have, 2 banks of 4 where you have, one wall of 4 players and another 4 wall of players behind it. They were sitting back in 2 banks of 5. So there really was not a whole lot of space for Tottenham to play into the middle. And what I also found was interesting is that Harry Kane, who was, of course, the England striker and, their top player, but he was coming back from injury. He hadn't played in 2 months. He got injured in a Champions League match. It looked pretty bad. I did not expect to see him back to get back before the Champions League final anyway. But he got on, and he was pretty ineffective. I mean, he's someone that, he creates a lot of space. He does a lot of movement. He's not going to sit there and just wait for the ball to come to him and actually, try and hunt the ball down and get into space and stuff. But we didn't see that from him, and he got marked completely out by Virgil van Dijk from Liverpool. So it really was kind of a drab game in the first half. I thought Liverpool, after they got the goal, they sat back. In the second half, they tried to press a little more. To get another goal and really kind of put their stamp on the game, but that didn't happen until the late stages of the game with Origi's goal. So it really was not a well played Champions League final, and from that came a lot of talk. Well, the Premier League, they start very early. They start in mid-August, and then they end early. So was there too much time for them between the end of their season before the Champions League final? But I don't really buy into that so much. I mean, we've seen Premier League teams really get after it, when they get ready for the finals. Neither of these teams, I think, were close to got to the later stages of the FA Cup, so maybe that might have hurt them a little bit. But at the same time, Tottenham was able to get Kane back, was able to get Song back from South Korea. So they were able to get healthy before the start of this match, and we just didn't see it. And I just thought that it was really kind of a disappointing match. I think overall, what really helped, just the fact that Liverpool had gotten to the final last year, and even though they lost to Madrid, and they've been there, and Spurs hasn't been this far, if ever. So it was a disappointing match overall, especially when you had what had happened in the semifinals. So, that's it for club season. Let's move on to the international tournaments now, as far as I'm concerned.
Right, and it's so funny because as the casual fan, I was talking with someone who's not a casual fan. He was saying the same thing, and often that it looked like Liverpool was kind of playing not to lose. So my question to you is that bad for the game when you don't see that aggressiveness? They did look a little more aggressive in trying to score in the second half, but is that bad for the game of soccer when you have a team like Liverpool and that you have a championship game like this and both teams kind of going through motions, if you will?
Yeah, I think for the neutral, it wasn't a fun game to watch. Both sets of supporters, and there were plenty there in the stadium in Madrid on Saturday. Of course, they were into it. All their fan bases, throughout the whole world, of course, were going to really be into it. But for the neutral, especially where Liverpool was concerned, because they've played, a tremendous season, and really just, because of the juggernaut that Manchester City has been over the last couple of years. I mean, they didn't win the Premier League title. I mean, they won they earned 97 points and still lost, which is, just almost unheard of. And that's how good Manchester City was throughout the throughout the season. But for a team like Liverpool that has talented players, and Mo Salah and Sadio Mane who earned the penalty, you just have players that can really influence the game with their skill and with their talent. We didn't see enough of that. Firmino from Brazil, another one. You just didn't really see them really press forward the way you expected to. And you didn't see the best out of Tottenham either. Pochettino, the manager for Tottenham, is always going to be second guessed for starting Harry Kane instead of starting Lucas Moura, who had a hat trick in the semifinals. So it's for the neutral, it's just going to be one of those forgettable finals, and you have that every once in a while. Games that just don't live up to the hype. And I was on Twitter while I was watching the game, and someone was saying this looked more like a group stage game at a World Cup than it looked like an actual final. And that was the kind of lack of real drive. And it's not like the players weren't playing hard. I mean, they were, but it just wasn't that imagination that you would expect to see out of two teams, especially from the English Premier League.
Talking with Andrew Dixon, and Andrew, before I go to Tony, you talk about star and name recognition, and you look at, and I think it's important to the game at least. Sedalia Marley, the eldest daughter of Bob Marley, had a big game-winning penalty kick to defeat Panama, so they get ready for the tournament in France, and this is a Jamaica team that has been mired in money issues and begging for money literally to try to make sure that they have enough funds to have the uniforms and everything else to compete, let alone win. And she took it personal. My question to you is, how important it is to have that name recognition for the game of soccer when you, again, trying to get the layman, trying to get the passerby fan, the days of the Mia Hamms and other people coming along to have a look or have the social status like a Marley's kid would have, and have to be able to play, by the way. Got to be able to play. You can't just have the name and can't ball. Even soccer, if you can't ball, then you can have all the names you want, but excuse me, how important is it for someone like her or someone else, in particularly the women's game, which, the women's, U.S. women at least has been dominated. I can't say that for the men, but women's game overall, how important is it for that name recognition and the talent with that name recognition?
Well, it's that's always the biggest question that you have when it comes to women's sports in general, and especially women's soccer. And so you have the fact that you've got the Reggae Girls finally making the Women's World Cup final, and you just hope that that it shouldn't have to take something like that, just one person's name to be able to really really spur the game forward. We're hoping obviously that this Women's World Cup is successful, because there are a lot of women that are starting to watch this a lot more and look at this and say, hey, I've really got a chance to really, follow football as a possible sport that, as a profession, as have that as a career. And that's always been, you talk about to any of the players that are representing the United States on the women's side, that's one of obviously they want to win, they're athletes and they're coming to play, but they also know that they are also they're pioneers, they're trailblazers, and so they want to make sure that they set a good example, so that other girls are going to be able to follow in their footsteps. But yeah, it's you always got to have the talent, and it's always going to be very important for that. At the end of the day, really, it was Bob Marley's daughter who helped financially to get that get the team going and keep them going. But they've really gotten after it. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of Jamaica football on the women's side. Mostly was going to the men's side for the Reggae Boys, and their run to the 1998 World Cup is still pretty celebrated. So it's important so that people in Jamaica, that young women that really want to follow the sport, that really want to get into the sport, they have someone to look up to, because it's not just a men's game. Women play this game all over the world, but do they get the support? And that's where the real that's what the real question is. That's where the real crux of it is. If you want to grow the game wherever you are, you want to be able to grow it so that everybody plays it, not just the boys, not just poor people. You want to make sure that everybody, women, girls, everybody has a chance to play the game. And so the Jamaicans, they're going to have a tough time with this. I mean, they open up against Brazil. That's
right.
It's a tough opening act. But they're there to play. They're not there to make up the numbers, as they like to say. They're coming to come after it. So you hope that they have a solid campaign, that they acquit themselves well, and that at the end of the day, it will just help the game, not just in Jamaica, but just really all over the world. I think that's what's important.
And just to follow up before I go to Tony real quick, you talk about not just for poor people, not just for certain areas, but wouldn't you say in some of those cases in Jamaica that, in some cases at least, it's sort of a way out for some that are very, very talented, and some of the other countries who play the sport, but you won't see them on the major stage at the World Cup or anything like that. They just don't have the talent to compete with the Brazils and everybody else. But how important is it, in terms of a way out, to do other things for some of these teams in these countries?
Yeah, I mean, and we see that here in the United States. I mean, how often is sports used as a gateway to get a college education or possibly even a professional career in sports. But it's important that people get the opportunity to play the game and really have an outlet to kind of uplift themselves. I mean, there's money to be made, and just for even getting to the World Cup, there's going to be money coming back into the Jamaica Football Federation, and hopefully a lot of it will go towards better development for women players in Jamaica. But again, it's just that being able to see yourself, a lot of black players when they were coming up in the 80s and 90s, they would see, they would see a Pelé, and they said, I can be like that. There's someone that looks like me that can do that. Women are going to see that, and say, hey, look, I see, Jamaican girls like me or Caribbean girls like me that are out there doing it, that are actually getting it done. So, whatever your circumstance is, I can, this is a way, not has to be the way, but this is a way that I can, improve my circumstances. And I think we've seen that all over the world, really.
Talking with Andrew Dixon, of course, talking some soccer, great stuff coming up. We're going to preview the big games coming up. 646-929-0130, the number to get in touch with us. Press 1 to get on the line. With that, I turn it over to my good friend and co-host, Tony T. Mac McClain.
Hey, Andrew. I wanted to piggyback on the championship game, but going into the international. And you touched upon it before, but how much does that hurt in a sense where these guys are almost looking past this game to a certain extent and want to get ready for the international schedule?
Oh, I don't think either one of these two teams were looking past this at all. Even though that, first of all, even though you have a fair amount of players, from South America, and the Copa America is coming up, starting very soon. But I don't think any one of these teams are looking past this particular game. And this is, for a club championship, this is the game. I mean, this is the Champions League final is it, and, you have the Copa Libertadores, which has been actually, contested longer than the Champions League in South America. But, no one was looking past this game. It just wasn't a well-played game. I mean, sometimes that just happens. You just have a game that's, maybe Tottenham's tactics were thrown off by the early goal, but the energy wasn't there. As I said, and Liverpool, as I mentioned, they sat back because they could. They had the lead, so they can come back and they can sit back and kind of see if Tottenham was able to play through them, and they proved that they weren't, through the entire first half. The only way they were able to really advance the ball was, through some long diagonals and try to get into space that way. But they didn't really have any real attempts, real solid attempts on goal. They didn't have any real sustained attack. And with Liverpool sitting back, I mean, as I said, it just wasn't a well-played game especially in the first half. Second half, I mean, most people, when I was following Twitter, most people were, half the tweets were about the game, and the other half of the tweets were about the streaker that came on. So it's just sometimes it just isn't a great game, and that happens. So.
So how many times have you heard you heard you can't walk alone till your ears bleed now, I guess, for the last 4 days?
It's and for a Manchester United fan like myself, it's just like, oh great, here comes the song again. But one of the great things about soccer is those type of traditions, the songs that they have. I mean, you will never hear that sustained singing in any kind of American sport whatsoever. I mean, you'll never hear that. And it's pretty amazing, that the songs that they make up for individual players, their team anthems, everything like that. I'm never going to begrudge Liverpool fans for singing that song because it's one of the great traditions in soccer. And to hear them sing that when they beat Barcelona, I didn't really stick around to hear much of it after they won the Champions League, because I was kind of over it at that point. But it is really one of the great traditions, and so I don't begrudge Liverpool fans for having that anthem and singing it the way they do. And if you go to any of the top in any of the top clubs all over the world, whether it's in Europe or in South America. I mean, these songs and these chants, I mean, it's part of what makes the game, part of what makes the atmosphere in these soccer games. And it's really a special thing. And having been to the World Cup, two different World Cups in 20 years apart, and to be in the stadium where fans are singing those songs, and we're singing our songs, and German fans are singing their songs, and the Ghanaian fans were in fine voice and rhythm and drums and everything else. That's part of what makes it makes the game so fun, because of that type of support that the fans give their teams.
Exactly. Of course, you got the Women's World Cup starting later on this week, and I know you mentioned before, the U.S. is heavily favored. Is there sort of a couple of teams that could be laying in the weeds that maybe not could win it, but could sort of mess up the apple cart in regards to getting through, say, like the round of 16, or at least the first, the field play. I'm sorry.
Right. Well, the United States is, I think they are favored, but this is by no means a slam dunk for the United States. France is got a very good team, and they're hosting, so that's going to help them immensely. The opening one of the opening matches in one of the group stages is Germany and China, where two former champions are getting after it. Norway is a very good team, and they don't even have their best player, and they'll still be a very tough out. Don't sleep on England either. They've steadily improved. They've been a very good team. Over the last 8, 10, 12 years. They've got a real legit shot at having a real deep run in this tournament. So, do I think the United States has the best team? Most likely, as I mentioned on the show before, their defense has to tighten up a little bit, and this will be the first time they're playing without Hope Solo in goal. For whatever you want to say about how crazy she is, she was a fantastic goalkeeper. And so, this will be a new, you have the changing of the guard, as you're always going to have that. This is going to be a new experience for some of these players. We've got great players that are going to be lining up for the United States, great players coming off the bench as well. So do I think the United States should be favored? Yeah, I think they should. And I think when they're playing at their best, I don't know that anybody can really beat them. But, anything can happen on any given day. And I think that, the likes of France and, the likes of Norway and the likes of England, and don't sleep on Brazil. I mean, this is probably Marta's last go-round for Brazil. And I think they're going to want to have a good deep run for her so that, she can have one last chance of trying to get a World Cup. So this is the United States is favored, but this is a pretty wide open tournament, and I think a lot of teams have a legitimate shot at winning this thing. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this thing shakes out, because I think you're going to see some good soccer from these ladies.
Yeah.
Alrighty, thanks.
I wanted to go to Reggie Howard and end with a couple other questions, but Reggie, good evening to you, sir. What say you?
Hey, gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for having your guests on about soccer. But I just want to follow up on that last conversation. What has been the new data as far as a lot of the NFL is trying to use soccer as a whipping boy as far as concussions? Has there been new data that's kind of supports soccer and stop them using you guys as a whipping boys for why they try to say that there are more head injuries in soccer than there is in pro football?
I haven't heard much of that conversation lately. Maybe just because it's NFL off season and things like that. And it's not. It will probably heat up again. When you have when you have a star player that gets knocked out or has to sit down because they looks like they're suffering a concussion. And again, it's not like and you'll never hear me say that concussions don't happen in the game of soccer. And usually it's not so much because of the heading of the ball, but it's usually you have these aerial battles where these players are going after the ball, and they're not even. It's not like they're targeting each other. Both of them had their eyes on the ball, and they just happen to knock heads, and they'll fall down, and really have some serious problems recovering. And I've seen that. So there's no you won't find any soccer fan that'll say, oh, this never happens in the game. It just doesn't happen as much as it does in American football, because just of the level of violence and the level of physicality that you have in American football. And I think the last time I was on, I gave the example of the Steelers center, and I think it was Jack Webster. I think I got his name wrong last time. But how he would use his head to kind of use his head and use his helmet to wedge positions within these offensive defensive lines, so he can open up space for Franco Harris or Rocky Bleier or whoever's coming between the coming through the holes there. You just don't have that in soccer, and I think that's there's just common sense where that's concerned. So I think it's a conversation that needs to continue to happen. As I said in the past, in youth soccer, they don't have a whole lot of, they don't allow kids to, really try to head the ball until they turn 15 and things like that. And I'm okay with that, because, at the end of the day, you want people to still be able to develop neurologically and cognitively. But, when it comes to, the sheer numbers and the sheer force, of concussions and head injuries and things like that, there really is no comparison between American football and international soccer.
Yeah, one quick question to follow up. When it comes to drug testing in soccer, what are some of the, should we say, problems that, as far as testing, because people are getting very sophisticated, and what are some of the drugs that I guess a lot of players are using to try to mask being tested positive?
They usually after a lot of games, especially international games, there are always a lot of doping tests. Now, what some of these players are using in terms of if they are doping, what they're doing to mask it, I honestly couldn't tell you about that. I think there's more. You see it more prevalently in maybe in track and field or cycling in sports like that. But it has happened. Most famously back in 1994 when the World Cup was in the United States. Diego Maradona. After the United States Argentina had beaten Nigeria at a game that I actually went to up in Foxborough, he was just supposedly, randomly chosen for a drugs test, and he failed the drug test and had to leave the tournament. So these things do happen, and we've heard, of people and having, doping tests that come back, and they have to sit out for a long period of time. But I'm not seeing it, as much as you're seeing it in sports like cycling. Cycling obviously it's been terrible. In baseball, you're still seeing players getting these 50-game suspensions, which is just about half of a season for some of these doping things. But in terms of the drugs that are being used, I really couldn't tell you that, and that's something just because you asked the question, I'm going to start looking up now so I can have better knowledge on it. It's a good question.
Reggie brings up a good point, though, that the soccer is being used as sort of a whipping boy, and it always seems to happen in sports in this country that is not as popular in the world. And soccer is the most popular sport on the planet. But in this country, they look for reasons to talk about other sports. They deflect, like the guy in the White House. They deflect all the time. And so, aside from doping, all the sports do it. It to your knowledge, is Soccer Nation trying to fight back a little bit in regards to trying to make it seem like these guys are, just running around banging heads and kicking each other in the head and everything else and getting concussions and everybody's injured because of that?
No, I think the game speaks for itself. There's always going to be negative aspects of any particular sport. You can name a sport, and there's something negative that is going on behind the scenes, or whether it's in the boardrooms or, institutionally. And soccer does not, soccer is not immune to that. There's been a lot of talk of especially in the European countries about, FIFA fair play financially, that some of these big teams like Paris Saint-Germain and Real Madrid are able to sign all these top players all the time to these outrageous, transfer fees because only they can afford them. And we see it here so much, not on terms of that level. MLS, for example, there's always been talk about how when they're trying to sign players, or where they're trying to sign players because it's a single entity league, that the rules are always kind of murky as to how these things go. So there's always going to be stuff off the field that's going to cause problems, and that's going to be of concern. But at the end of the day, it's the product on the field that matters. And when you look at where this league has come over the last 23 years, I lived in D.C. When the league dropped, when the league started, and so to this day, D.C. United is still my team. But we had 10 teams in the league, and then we got up to 12, and then 2 teams were contracted in Miami and Tampa Bay because they just weren't selling. So you go from there to go to 24 teams now, or whatever it is. I think it's maybe 26 now, and they're trying to get up to 30 teams. And the play has gotten better. you bring in the likes of David Beckham over the years, and now you've got some of these other top players that come. Carlos Vela is just killing it for LAFC right now, and he's just been an absolute joy to watch for LAFC. So you're having those type of players that are coming in and making an impact in the league is showing that we do have a pretty decent league here in the United States. So whatever happens off the field, that's going to be dealt with, and you hope that it's dealt with so it's not, such a detriment to the game. But the most important thing, as with anything, is that what's the product on the field? And the product on the field has been decent. It's not the Mexican League. It's not, the top leagues in Europe, but it's carved up its niche in the international soccer field, and it's carved its niche out in the American sports landscape, and so it's doing all right.
Yeah, and it's funny you should mention in terms of leagues that are doing well. The U.S. just had a nice upset in the U.S. In the U20 FIFA World Cup, going on 3-2 over France. When you look at Sebastian Soto with the 2 goals, talk about that league and how important it is to the overall game of soccer, and the age group and how they play, and how the U.S. fares overall in that.
Yeah, U20 World Cup is they have World Cups for U17, U20. They used to have a U23 type of competition. Usually kind of see that with the Olympics now, Olympic soccer. But these international tournaments are important, these youth tournaments, because that's where, as a young player, you get that international experience. You understand what it is to play at that high level. Any soccer player will tell you that, is whatever league that they're playing in, whenever they get to the international level, the game picks up. It's faster. It's sharper. The tackles come in harder. The speed of play is just it's so much faster than what they're used to in their various leagues. And you want to be able to say that you've had that success on the international level, even at the youth level, so that when you get up to the senior team, you're able to, okay, this is not so new, and for the last over the last like maybe 5-6 years, internationally on the youth level, the United States hasn't fared all that well. So for them to come through, they had a kind of up and down group stage. They kind of labored against Qatar to get into this group stage match, but for them to come back against France, who were the pre-tournament favorites, and score a 3-2 win. I mean, that's exceptional, and that's just going to help them going forward, not so much just in this tournament, but when they go back with their club teams, and then when they get to the senior international level, they say, look, I know how to play this. I played this international game. I'm bring what I brought on the youth level here, and continue to learn, and so it's not so completely foreign to them to be playing at this international level. So, all of the top stars. I mean, Leo Messi has won a gold medal at the Olympics. A lot of top players that you see playing on their national teams, they started and played on these youth levels. And we've had it here. I mean, Landon Donovan Beasley, DeMarcus Beasley, excuse me. They were top players when they played the U17 World Cup back when they were youngsters. So it's important for that international development, so that when you get to the senior level, it's not so new. I know how to play internationally. At least I have some semblance of an idea. Let me learn what I need to learn here, so I can be successful here too.
Final question for you, as we go back to what Tony, piggybacking off of what Tony said in terms of the U.S. clearly should be the team to beat. They are the most talented, they're the best team, most organized, if nothing else. But, what would it take to upset them, and what team you think would be that? I mean, like you said, Brazil should handle Jamaica, and you'll see, matches like that. The China match is going to be really interesting. But what do they need? A team need to do to knock off the U.S. And what round do you think it would happen, if any?
It's got to be, you got to really run at the U.S. defense, really kind of stretch them out. When I've seen them struggle, it's usually because they've had way too much space in between their midfield and the defensive line, and they've been able to, teams have been able to get in there and exploit that. Now, they seem to tighten that up because in their last few exhibition matches, I mean, they've just been dominant and haven't let up any goals. I don't think they've been scored upon in the last 3 or 4 matches. So that's where you really have to get after them. And so you got to have to get after them with speed. You got to get after the U.S. And kind of stretch them out between the midfield and the defense, and really kind of test that back line. I mean, they've got solid players back there, but they're not as experienced as has been in the past. You've got not a new goalkeeper, but certainly in terms of big tournament experience, you've got someone coming in and trying to step into the shoes of Hope Solo. So I think that's where you really have to try and get at the U.S. So, but that's a tall ask. I mean, that's a really hard ask because the U.S. midfield is very talented. They've got players I mentioned that can come off the bench and they can outscore opponents. Especially with you got Mallory Pugh coming off the bench, Kristen Press, who also comes off the bench, who I think is really solid. I mean, she would be starting for most countries, I think. And I think you look at Alice Moore, you look at Megan Rapone and Tobin Heath, who I think is just really, really talented, and she's got the skills to really embarrass a defender. I think she's going to really make herself a star here. And of course, Carly Lloyd, who was just tremendous in that final 4 years ago. So it's going to be a tall ask, but there are teams that are out there that can do it. France they're fast, they're technical, and they play hard, and they're going to be buoyed by having the home crowd behind them. So there are teams that are out there, but if it's not going to surprise me or anybody else if the United States wins again and defends their title.
Question for you, just to switch basketball. I know you follow it. Golden State and Toronto. This is talk about the storylines. You have one team with one player feeling like maybe he doesn't feel like, but people are trying to make it like he has the weight of a country to win a title for their first time even getting there, let alone winning. And then you have another team that everybody says will not look the same next year that's trying to win and go out the right way. But they are the walking dead at this point. So what do you see in this series? I know we're asking you 3 games in, but who do you think is going to win, and what do you think sort of is going to happen? I know Durant's out for Game 3. They already ruled him out. But, what's going to happen moving forward?
It's what I worry about, and I think Jeff Van Gundy talked about this in during the last telecast. This team isn't anywhere as deep as they've been in the past. So you always hear when someone gets injured, they say, "Well, next man up." Okay. Well, they've had some really tough injuries here. Obviously you're missing Durant, who I think, if he was playing, he'd still be the best player in the series and ahead of Kawhi Leonard. When he's at his best, I mean, he's just unstoppable. But Klay Thompson, obviously he limped off. You got to see how he's going to come back, because not only is he just an unbelievable shooter, especially when he gets hot, but he's a very underrated defender. And it's going to take more than one player to really kind of slow down a Kawhi Leonard. But he's got to be at his best, physical best, to defend someone with that type of talent and that type of strength. So I think the biggest thing really going forward is, can Golden State keep their health, and is their bench going to be able to, really, obviously you're not going to win the game with your bench, but you got to, you don't want to lose it with your bench. And just see, I think I read today that Looney's been ruled out for the rest of the series because he has a fracture. Andrew Bogut came in and played decently off the bench. DeMarcus Cousins obviously had a nice all-around game. So it's just a matter of whether Golden State has enough depth, because Toronto's going to keep coming. This is all new to them, but they're going to keep coming. And they've got they need to play that got like nothing to lose, because they're the underdogs, and I think that they're going to they're not going to fold just because they go to Golden State for the next 3 games. I mean, and nothing ever seems to phase Kawhi Leonard. So, as long as he's out there, he's going to give them a fighting chance. And if, the rest of it, I mean, you wait see how Van Vliet has come on, in the last series and in this one, if Siakam comes back and plays anywhere near how he played in Game 1, I kind of likened it to because I didn't think he was capable of scoring 32 points in a final, so I kind of likened it to that Scott Wedman performance in 1984. Like, where's all this coming from? Yeah, I took it back there. So
wow, Scott Wedman mentioned. Lord Jesus.
I know my basketball history. Don't act like I don't. But so again, it's just if Golden State can stay healthy and if their bench can really support what the likes of Steph Curry, Steph Curry's playing awesome right now. Best I've seen him play in really since Kevin Durant got there. When I think about it, for this amount of period, this amount of time, sustained period of time. But if they're able to do that, they should kind of outlast them. But they're going to need to stay healthy, and they're going to need to make sure that their bench players. I mean, we haven't seen a whole lot of Sean Livingston, who's always been really sought off the bench, but he hasn't been as effective and as sharp as you've seen him in past. So I think it's really going to be a question of how deep and how the quality of the depth of Golden State, and if they're able to maintain, then they can win it. They should win it.
Yeah, I think they will. But you're right. It's going to be interesting because, Toronto just needs to take one to get it back the way they want it to go. But we shall see. Andrew, as the week goes on, sir, we are going to break down the FIFA games, and we'd love to have you on to do so. And I appreciate the time this evening, man.
I appreciate you having me on. I love talking about soccer, so thanks for having me on. And, throw those little Scott Wedman reference up in there.
Scotty Wedman. There's a Scotty Wedman mentioned in here. Appreciate you, Andrew.
All right. Take care, guys.
Andrew Dixon, of course, soccer analyst, and can talk NBA, and he's actually a thriving attorney too, a very talented man. I'm gonna take a quick break and come back on the pad. Stay tuned.
That man is fine, man, he fine, yeah. So fine, that's why he's mine, yeah. Real cute, like a Zelda. So cool, like Osman Baba. I don't mind, no, I don't mind, yeah. If he got the Curry's eyes, yeah. He protects me like 2K.
Welcome back to the pad. If you miss any part of our broadcast, you can always go to our website and listen to the podcast of every show on the Batchelor Pad Radio Network at the Batchelor Pad Network.com, the Batchelor Pad Network.com. LA Batchelor alongside Tony T. Mac McLean, Reggie Reg, both my brothers here on the show. T, you were talking about Game 4, Boston, St. Louis. St. Louis pulls it out. Boston loses a key player, a key defenseman, takes a puck in the face, got a broken jaw. He may not play Game 5. Is the momentum officially shifted, or, this is a series where everybody can win, especially a talented team like Boston?
Well, both teams have come in and won in each other's house. So basically now it's 2 out of 3. Losing Chara it's twofold because he was one of the big penalty killers as well. So it's a big blow. It's a big blow. Now it's just now I think it's going to be an interesting momentum thing now because a lot of people would think whoever wins this next game will win the series. I don't know. I think we may have to go 7 for this one. I think this series may go 7. I think Boston still is probably looked upon as a favorite, but it's not gonna be the cakewalk that I think people thought it was going to be after that 7-2 bludgeoning in game 3.
Yeah, good job by St. Louis. Reg, to switch to the NBA, Andrew was talking about the injuries, and Toronto's going to keep coming at them. I know you picked the Raptors. I know you're going to stay with the Raptors. But how big is it if Durant doesn't play? I mean, one of the things that Golden State has is veteran leadership, but they got veteran old leadership. So that bench has got to come up big. And Looney gone sets that whole rotation off, So what do you think in Game 3 is going to happen, especially with all the injuries for Golden State?
I think people are selling the coaching staff and Golden State team short. You've seen their players, like the Steelers and others of the past, next man up. We've seen that. It's the Godfather and also we call him the Great White Hope of the CIAA, the White Shadow, Dave Robbins. Every time after January and February, we will see players inserted, getting ready for that tournament. They've done the same thing with Golden State. They're role players. They accept the role, they move forward. A lot of teams don't have that commitment. Yes, let's be honest. Case in point, the Houston Rockets. You have to get down 1 or 2 of their players. The bottom falls out. And I truly believe that with that crowd, and Kawhi Leonard is hurt. Nobody wants to talk about it, but this man Kawhi is hurt.
He's very much hurt.
Yeah,
you're right.
Hurt.
You're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
And another thing, their role players are not going to respond well, I don't believe, this tomorrow on the pressure. I mean, I'm going to stick with the Raptors, but I tell you what, I would not be surprised to see Golden State blow them out Game 3 because this coaching staff right now has to make some adjustments. I was going to say real quick that it's all about being in the moment. And when that ball gets to your hands and it's Game 3 and their possession means something, I got to go with the champ because they've been there, done it. This is uncharted water for the Raptors. Right. This is human nature. And I think a lot of the butts are going to start getting tight. This is one of the ones where you like, oh, damn. As that great philosopher Cam Newton said, we got tight, the coach got tight, everybody got tight in the sideline. We're talking about just relax. Everybody's getting tight. They were so tight, it'd be like,
well, to your point. Oh, my God, he wouldn't show up. But I feel your point. And to your point, Siaka and it doesn't have experience, and Lowry is being Lowry. So, this is the Lowry we know in the playoffs. He's peanut butter sandwich. Had a nice little run, but he's peanut butter sandwich overall. So we'll see what happens. I think Game 3 is kind of pivotal because it shifts unlike hockey, especially with the St. Louis and Boston series, as Tony said, these teams will just beat each other up and they can win on each other's ice. And it'll probably go 7. I just think Golden State, if Reggie, if you're right, if they blow out Toronto, then they smell blood in the water. The series ain't over, but they're going to start smelling it, though. And you know how champions do. They want to put their foot on the throat. Sometimes this team lets people back in the game, as we know, and a series, as we know. But I don't know. I think with all the injuries and they come out and go crazy with that crowd, it's going to be hard for Toronto to win Game 4. Talking some sports, L.A., Tony and Reg T going to baseball. News out of with McCutchen with the injury there. That's huge for this team who's trying to continue to get back and maybe go any further. You already got pressure on the $6 trillion dollar man. I'm being facetious, but now with McCutchen, a guy that's out like that, I just think that's a huge blow for this team.
And when you consider that basically now Jay Bruce is his replacement, I'm not the greatest Jay Bruce fan. To me, Jay Bruce is the closest thing to Dave Kingman in baseball right now. But that's still one of the closer divisions. I know going in, Atlanta was just a half game back, and even those guys up in Flushing, they were only 4 games back, but they're 3 games under. It's I think now you're going to start to hear maybe they make a move for Kimbrel, maybe they make a move for Keuchel. I know the Yankees and the Astros names have been mentioned in regards to Keuchel, but I'll be anxious to see what winds up happening with some of these teams that may be out of it. And I heard the weirdest rumor today that Cleveland's 11 games behind in the Central, and they're talking about a possible fire sale starting off with, of all people, Lindor.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's a bit, that's a bit much. I mean, I know that they're probably out of it for the season, but you want to get rid of a guy that arguably is the face of the franchise and expect folks to still come to the games,
Well, that seems to be the norm though with small market teams, especially they either going to shoot their load, they don't get it, then they just shoot everything away, if you will. And Cleveland, no exception. I'm not saying they're right, but I'm just saying a lot of these small market teams, they do that. Let me ask you this, and Gary Gray's on the line. Something we don't get to talk about, and I think we need to and study and look at it, because a lot of these players, albeit how we feel about baseball and the lack of black players, but a lot of these players are coming through those ranks and come up really fast. You know how they push them. A lot of people, I was reading online, I was talking to a Met fan, and he's all excited about the draft they had. They just got Matt Allen in the 3rd round, supposed to be a really good right-hander. Have you heard anything about who's done really well in the draft thus far this year?
The baseball draft, it's literally a baseball draft can only be judged, I think, about 4 or 5 years down the road. Now, granted, they do send a lot of these guys up a little bit sooner than later. I watched a lot of the college, I guess the college playoffs this weekend, and it seems as though this year's class is very pitcher heavy, as with Adams and a few other kids, like Bobby Witt's kid has been getting a lot of hype as well, although he's not a pitcher, but. Again, it's kind of hard. Actually, that's still going on. Still have one more day. It's hard to say. I mean, it's. again, I usually, I try not to be too non-committal, but I really can't judge it. And, it's a bit early. At some, let's put it this way: Baltimore is very high on the kid that they drafted in the outfield, so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe by next year sometime you may see him come up. But again, they're basically doing the process thing of just purging the major league roster and just bringing up the kids and just letting them basically learn on the job training. Sometimes it works, like you saw with Houston and the Cubs a few years back, and sometimes it can blow up in your face.
Yeah. Gary Gray on the line. Always good to have you on, Gary. I have to talk about your A's, who have been kind of up and down and, really down at this point. Losers of 5 straight.
Right.
It has to be tough, though, the way they design their team. And Tony really is kind of hitting on, we kind of talk about how these franchises do. But it's got to be tough when you have a Houston that seems like they're in it for the long haul. This franchise looks like they're going to be good for quite some time now. We did say that about the Royals, and we see where they are now. The Houston seems like the real deal for the long haul. They already won a title. So how tough is it for Oakland to stick with their money ball and their really taking a Philly term, trusting the process, and I see you, Orlando, trusting the process. How tough is that for Oakland to do that?
Well, they've been doing it for the last 20 years now.
Right.
And they have only won 3 playoff series. Back in 2000, it was the Detroit Tigers that kept beating them with Verlander. I think this year they took a real hit with Kyler Murray going to football. I think that was a real blow because they were counting on Kyler Murray to wear Oakland green, and it's not gonna happen.
Yeah. You think, though, if you want to, and it goes back to that small market stuff, though. Not only you have teams that are doing better over the last, say, decade, Texas Rangers, Houston, and not to mention the other divisions in the Central and the East, but you're not even – it with Golden State winning, like, who cares about Oakland A's baseball, really?
Right.
San Jose. You got a better hockey team out there. I mean, who really cares about that? So I guess my question to everybody is how does small ball sustain in this environment? And take it a step further, in baseball, how do they compete if they don't have, if they're always going to go after Joe White guy ain't going to always win it for you. We already know the Latino ball players, how they get down. So, just take it around the horn to you, Gary, first. Can they sustain? Can they compete? Or it's just kind of win every 10 years?
No. What's happening in Oakland is a bad arbiter of what's going to happen in the rest of the league. This past week, there were Oakland A's at home. They were averaging 17,000 people, 17 to 18,000 people per game. You cannot do that. I don't care who you are, you cannot do that. And they've been getting away with it for years because it's Oakland. Well, now, guess what? If they go below 500, which they are right now, they're in trouble because people will not go to their games. And the Oakland has been in the playoffs, I think, 7 years. And that's why they got away with it. But guess what? They can't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick too. I mean, the days of the Dave Stewarts and even going back further, Raleigh Fingers or somebody out there, Tony, are gone. The Raiders are more. The Raiders could lose forever and probably still be more popular than the A's. I mean, really.
The A's are sort of where baseball is now. I was looking at the standings today to prep for the show, and it's hit or miss. You have your top heavy teams, the Dodgers, Yankees, Astros, to a certain extent. Then you have your middle of the road teams that are like maybe a game or two over 500 or a game or two under 500, and then there's the dregs. It is, there is, and see, the thing with Oakland, and to go back to what Gary said, the whole Moneyball. Look, I never liked the whole Moneyball approach to an extent, because see, my thing has always been.
If nothing else, you're telling real quick. If nothing else, you're telling your fans, I want to win on a cheap way, or try to win cheap. That's what they're telling your fans.
And see, my thing also is, I don't think, and maybe I'm naive, I don't think of it as small market, big market anymore, because with the TV contracts, with all the games on TV now, on cable or what have you, these folks are making money. You have to remember that 14-year gap between the Pirates losing to the Braves in the 92 playoffs, and then making the wild card game about 10 years back. They were, they had 14 straight losing seasons, but they made money. They made money each and every one of those seasons. Matter of fact, they moved into a new, they moved from Three Rivers to PNC Park. So, and again, we've seen quote unquote small market teams when they do spend a couple of bucks, go out there and do it. Look at what Kansas City did. Look at what Tampa's doing now. Right. I mean, basically Tampa is doing it through the draft, and they'll add, and if they see fit, they'll add a veteran back, and then I'm looking at a team like the Padres. Now, the Padres splurged a little bit this year to get Machado, but they also had kids like Tatis Jr. and others in the farm system, so they went for it a little bit. And right now, they're 2 games over, and they're actually 4 games out of the last wild card berth. Now, it's early, of course. It's still somewhat early because it's June. But the fact that that the Padres are actually somewhat relevant this time at this time of the year says something. And the thing with Oakland, and I don't want to keep beating up Oakland because I think the only the only team that does to me a worse job of it is Florida. Now, a lot of it has to do with their past their past fire sales, but also a lot of it is just that Jeter came in there basically and said, "Look, we're just going to tear it up and try and build up from it." But there's not a whole hell of a lot to build up from what I can see.
I'm doing what baseball has done. And said to the people of Oakland, look, this is what we have. You go enjoy the game. It's going to the park, going to Wonderland, and you can't win. You can't win, and then they go move on. And my thing is this: you play to win the game.
Tell them, Herm.
And then let me add. But Reggie, I think T is making my point though, in the sense that it's not small market, big market per se. It's what the monies they do with small market, big market. Because, say what you want, and I'm not saying this, to you, Orlando T and Gary and Reggie. I'm not saying this because I'm a Yankee fan, but how many Steinbrenners do you have? The one thing, you love him or hate him, Steinbrenner put money back into the team. He won. People got upset. He buy a player for 6 months or whatever, and that's it. Yeah. Right or wrong, he would spend the money. So small markets can do it. They're making the money, like T said, Reggie. The money is coming in. The revenue's coming in. Everybody's got a TV package now. It's the difference is they don't want to invest in the team when they make the money. So everybody making money, but it's all a matter of who's going to actually go out and, hey, I really want to win this title. I'm going to go get Machado or whoever else. Tampa's doing it a little different, Reggie. They always had the Longorias and the Uptons around a little bit. They build through the draft, like T said, and now they're reaping some benefits now. We'll see how it lasts, throughout the year, Boston coming up and everything else. But it's really about who's going to spend that big billions of dollars, it seems, from those TV packages and invest into their squad. Did we lose Reggie? See if we lost Reggie here.
You know what, LA? I want to. To me, this is the perfect team to understand why teams are lazy. The Milwaukee Brewers. The Milwaukee Brewers are about as middle America as you can get. But last year, they traded for Yelich. They went out and signed Kane. Down the stretch, they picked up Moustakas, and apparently, at least if you believe the rumors, they're going to go after. They may be one of the teams that may possibly go after another starter. But now, in our thinking, Milwaukee is a quote unquote small market team. But no, because Milwaukee is right in the. Milwaukee is right in the midst of arguably the best division in baseball, with them, the Cubs, the Cardinals, the Pirates, and even the Reds, who are only like about 5 or 6 games out, but they're still under 500. The thing is, Milwaukee, unlike Oakland, Milwaukee will go out and say, is so-and-so going to be a difference maker for us? We'll go out there and get it. Now, last year when Oakland was in the stretch, they basically took Familia off the Mets' hands. Thank God. And
I like the way T said that.
and Fernando Rodney. They did it on the cheap. I get it. If you want to do it on the cheap, that's fine. But don't basically try to sell snow to an Eskimo and then wonder why nobody shows up for the ball for the games.
Yeah. We lost Gary. Hopefully we'll get him back on another line. Orlando, same thing. First of all, good evening, and second of all, I know you've been in you feel your 76ers morning. But, the big news with the Phillies is McCutchen going down. I think that's a huge blow to a team that's still trying to find their way, if you will. And it looks like it's them in Atlanta competing. I still think the Mets will be there at the end. But, talk about that injury and talk about, how these teams spin. Phillies are a good market, but they haven't always – sort of went out and did that. In fact, I think they've been doing it the other way, where they've been, bringing in young ball players and signing free agents when they need to.
Well, good evening to everyone as well. The Phillies, for the longest, have been owned by people that were silent partners. We never knew who the owners were. You talked about Steinbrenner, the Yankees. You knew that, There was never an owner. So John Middleton, who was one of the private owners, sees the majority of the team, and he's vocal, and he came out publicly. And, of course, he's been mocked all over, is that, he's going to spend stupid money. And he has the GM here, and then they did things, and it's a shame that McCutcheon went down because he was having a good season. So it makes their recent trade over the weekend for Bruce all that more important.
Yeah.
But you can't really play him every day because he was supposed to be a bench bat. But they'll temporarily play him, and they're injured right now. But yeah, you're right. There are teams with that have that I don't want to say small market, but have that cheap ass mentality. They're not spending the money.
Right.
And in certain markets, it kind of makes sense. Like Gary was saying, with the Golden State Warriors being so dominant and the Oakland Raiders threatening to move to Savannah, Georgia, back to Montreal, nobody's paying attention to what's going on with the Oakland A's. And, I mean, short of that movie coming out, and I know it's been years ago, but short of the movie coming out, the A's really haven't done anything in a very long time.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, but baseball has been poorly run through their garbage commissioners. Nobody cares. In LA, not to knock on your boys, but I mean, baseball continues to try to force the rest of the country to like Boston and the Yankees. We don't care about.
I'm down with you. I agree with you.
Yeah. We don't care about a Subway series. Like if you live in, where Tom lives at, there is no fucking. Excuse me. There is no Subway. So what are you talking about, a Subway series? If I'm playing dumb. So that's they're force feeding. So, and like I said, I think that baseball honestly should have a team in San Juan, Puerto Rico. If they really wanted to do something,
they're working
on it in that market.
They're working on it. They're working on it.
Yeah, but that should have happened already, though. T. That should have happened when you had the Expos, which are now the Nationals, playing. There should have been a team there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And see what's so ass backwards is they'll play games. They've been playing games in Mexico. They're gonna have a Yankee Red Sox game in London, which makes no sense. I'm sorry, but go. Feed your fan base. You got a fan base there, and say, let's put it this way: who do you think would sell out? Who do you think would have higher attendance for 81 games? A team in San Juan or the Marlins? I'll wait.
You're right.
Yeah, it's the whole thing of, because see, the biggest problem with baseball is that they still think that they're the national pastime.
Right.
And to me, that's the problem. That's why they push Yankees Red Sox. And again, you can't push a regional rivalry. Baseball is national. You have, yes, are there Yankee and Red Sox fans around the country? Yes. Most of them, now most of them are front runners, because when the teams aren't good, they basically share a cell with Cowboy fans that hide out when they're bad as well. But the thing is, you have to push the entire game. You've got great fans in St. Louis. You have two great fan bases in Chicago. Colorado always sells. You have a burgeoning. I think if the Padres are halfway decent, I think you'll get some people to come up. But see, the bottom line is with baseball fans is you got to show them something, because put it this way, the most angriest fan in baseball are the 6 Florida Marlin fans that are still alive, because yes, they've won 2 World Series, But what if they got? I mean, they literally don't have anything to show for it because every time that they've won it, they've stripped the team more naked than Lady Godiva. And when Jeter, see, the biggest crime Jeter did coming in was do exactly what the guys who came before him did. The fact that he sent Stanton to the Yankees was just another kick in the ass for that fan base. And so now they're speaking, because see, now if the team does get good again, they're going to, they still might not come out because, you know what? I've seen this movie before and everybody dies in the end.
Yeah, and you know how it ends. A couple of things about me. A, I am not that Lady Yukon Husky fan that thinks they should win and always win. And B, I don't want to see Yankees Red Sox on TV all the time. So I want to make that clear. And by the way, too, for whatever reason, my oldest son especially, he's very athletic. He wants to play baseball, which is a good thing. And so it's a good thing, and the younger one follows suit, so they'll be playing baseball this summer. Let me ask you this. Here's a question that came over the email. I think it's very, very good and very, very important to the three of you. The emailer was saying, congratulations to FAMU, College World Series. They got beat by Coastal Carolina, but they made there. They look really good, winning the MEAC title. Congratulations to them. But the question is, they were saying congratulations, and the question is, I'll start with you, T. Does that have an impact on black people playing and black athletes in the game of baseball when, FAMU can get to the College World Series and make some form of impact, or any HBCU if they do that?
And congrats to Southern, too. I'm sorry. And Southern also got there this year. In fact, Southern actually beat LSU earlier this year at LSU. So that's huge. With all that being said, unfortunately, there isn't that feeder system anymore because if you look, and this is just telling them like it is, unfortunately, when you look at the all-star teams from the SIAC, from the MEAC, from the SWAC, from the CIAA, it's mainly Latino, black. I mean, there's very few black. Matter of fact, I hate to say this, I see more black players playing at the white schools than I do at the black schools. Yeah. I mean, they're brothers that play. Because, in fact, shout out to Winston-Salem, who won another tournament, but now are purging their baseball program. So, unfortunately, that's the slippery slope of HBCU baseball right now. For every FAMU and Southern that can make the College World Series, there's a Winston that has to be that basically is going to purge their program. And unfortunately, there is no Ricky Weeks, there is no Danny Goodwin, there is no Lou Brock. There isn't even there isn't even Buck O'Neill, formerly of Edward Waters College down in Jacksonville, that's there to cultivate these players. The sad thing is, unless you physically see more black kids playing, the HBCUs are not going to be a feeder system. And sadly, unfortunately, they haven't been a feeder system to the major leagues since a Ricky Weeks. Now, and Ricky Weeks was an exceptional ball player. He basically won the Golden Spikes Award, which is the Heisman Trophy equivalent to in college baseball. But that's the thing. There's no feeder system in the HBCUs. There's no feeder system in the high schools. And I mean, I hate to paint a bleak outlook, but it's unfortunately it's not there. I would hope that somewhere down the road it would be, but it's probably going to take some time. And I know for all of us who would love to see more folks that look like us playing baseball, we're probably going to have to sadly go back to, the late 50s, early 60s, where there's only like a handful of black players on rosters, and there's going to be a handful of teams that don't have any black players.
And Reggie, I guess my question also would be, it's not acceptable not to have black players, but should we, because this might be sort of a practical question, but and sort of an offbeat question, but should we champion the Latino brothers, our Latino brothers, our brown brothers, because we don't have the brothers out there, and because at the end of the day, when we're talking about the social injustices and racism and stuff, we are talking about black and brown people. So should we get behind gung-ho, with the brothers that are from other countries? Because clearly, and we lost Reggie, so I have the same question to you, Orlando. Clearly, we don't have the system, as Tony talked about. We don't have that at all. So where do we go from here?
You would ask me this question, right? Listen,
fire in that belly, boy.
I'm gonna keep this one mellow, and I'm gonna answer it, but I'm not gonna answer it. For the cousins, yeah, there are their problems. But I'm going to be very mean purposely. My problems are not their problems for the most part. And they got to come to our rescue, and they got to speak out about the injustices that they see happening to us here. While they're here playing baseball in this country, they speak it up. I see too many of them are quick to point out that they don't speak English very well is the key, very well. But their native tongue is Spanish. That doesn't make you Spanish. That doesn't make you Spanish. That means your native tongue is Spanish. Our native tongue is English. I'm sure you brothers may have been to the British Isles, but we're not English. So I say no with that. I'll champion a few of their causes because some of them are egregious, but no. I mean, right now what's happening to black people in this country is so messed up, and we're getting it from everybody. Because everybody knows how to come and to better themselves off the blacks and labor of black people. And the worst thing in the world is that the world see us as a lazy group of people, and that's far from the case. That's far from the case, and that's far from the truth. But no, to answer your question, no. The other part, which you were saying, I agree with Tony. We are returning back to a time where there will be a late 50s, early 60s style of baseball where there really aren't that many black players. And unfortunately, hell, our HBCUs can't even get financial aid right in some instances and some causes, which we won't bring up really too much. So them trying to keep up with baseball, no. Congratulations to Sam. Good job. But, I mean, Sam is playing in a league that is predominantly Spanish-speaking brothers and sisters, or brothers and white guys. You know, if you're an opportunity, if you're a smart white person, why go compete at George Washington when you can go over and ball out at Howard?
Right.
If they had a team.
Right. Oh yeah, that's true. That's true as well. But no, I mean, I hate to be mean, but
it's reality. It's reality.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're being honest, so that's all it's about.
But do our HBCUs really need baseball? I mean, you consider like it's not a revenue generating sport. They can be dominant if they really focus on it. But we're all over the map trying to compete on a Division I level, and the University of Alabama's football team's budget is more than all of our HBCUs put together. 1 year. University of Alabama, just their budget for football is more than all of our HBCUs.
That's
LA,
insane.
I always say that one university that I kind of love is bragging because they brought home $3.5 million for the athletic department. And the $3.5 million is not even a salary for some assistant coaches on the University of Alabama.
LA.
Wow.
Think of this, LA. Arguably one of the most high-profile amateur baseball players in the last 4 or 5 years has been Monet Davis. The good news, Monet Davis is going to Hampton. Bad news, he's going to play hoops.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
Monet actually goes to the school in my neighborhood, and I see her, and that's only because of how her parents are raising her to Hampton. But Hampton, for her in this neighborhood, she sees all of the proud Hampton alumnus that loot this area, and when I say loot, I mean really loot this area because there's a lot of them. In this area. So she sees that pride that they demonstrate. But you're right. Not for baseball, but she's going for basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And sadly, I hope that, Coach Six won't spoil that opportunity. But I was going to try to compare that to the brother that has left Howard, because he wanted that experience of going to an HBCU. He had other opportunities. But two different situations. I don't think Hampton would spoil it like Howard spoiled the young man is spoiled out of Howard this year.
Well, we need to leave it there, but I think it was an interesting question. And the person, and just kind of reading some of the other stuff that she mentioned out, I don't know if she kind of understands the dynamics of the game right now in terms of baseball and black players, in terms of how, just as you mentioned, T, this young lady going to Hampton, HBCU, but she's not going for the sport she's known for. She's going for another sport. So, it sounded like an optimistic email, but, you said, you got to be honest about it.
And look, we're not trying to jump on all the emailers. I know we went after whoever emailed us about Trump last night, and we sort of were Debbie Downer for this one. But it's look, I grew up in an era where it was commonplace to see, black ball players. I'm old enough to remember the day when the Pirates fielded an all-black team. Black and Hispanic, but it was still an all-black team. They're honoring. This is the 50th anniversary of the Miracle Mets. You got to remember, you had Tommy Agee and Cleon Jones and Don Clendenin. All of those guys are HBCU products on that team. Plus, you had guys like young Kenny Singleton and Ed Charles, and a young Amos Otis that were part of that organization back in the 60s. That was 50 years ago. Now the Mets, I think, only have one black player on their major league roster, let alone in their farm system. So It is what it is. It's like I said. I go back and forth because I admit I am a baseball fan, but I'm like, what was the guy Jeff Redd made the song "Love Don't Love Me"?
Right.
I love baseball, but baseball don't love me back. And
right.
I know I look at myself stupid sometimes. Why do you still watch it if the sport doesn't try to cater to you? It's foolishness, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we continue to talk about it and express it, and be hopeful. Like you said, maybe some things change. Maybe some young players will come along and change the dynamics of all of that. That's it for us. If you missed any part of the broadcast, go to our website, thebachelorpadnetwork.com, thebachelorpadnetwork.com. On Thursday, Nick Anastas will join us to talk some New England sports. Barry Barnes tentatively will join us, too, to talk NFL.
And New England sports.
And right, exactly. Oh, God. Man, it's a Patriot love affair. Actually, he's more New England loving Patriots than Nick is, but I digress. And then we're going to talk about that movie, when they see us or how they see us. So we'll talk about that movie and how far we've come. Dr. Lee Bell will join us with that as well. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll talk on Thursday. Don't forget, tomorrow you have the Donelson Files with Tom Donelson, 6 p.m. Eastern. And, of course, you will have the Dr. Larry Show as well. Enjoy. Talk with you soon.
Every day I wake and everything is broken. Turning off my phone just to get out of bed. Get home every evening and history's repeating. Turning off my phone 'cause it's hurting my chest. Yeah, and heaven knows I'm not helpless. Yeah, but what can I do? I can't see the use in me crying if I'm not even trying to make the change I wanna see. I can't sit and hope, I can't just sit and pray that I can find a love when all I see is pain. Falling to my knees, and though I do believe, I can't just breathe, baby, breathe. I can't just breathe, baby, breathe. All I hear is voices, everybody's talking. Nothing real is happening 'cause nothing is new. Now when all is tragic and I just feel sedated, why do I feel numb? Is that all I can do? Yeah, and heaven knows I'm not helpless. Yeah, but I'm only human. I can't see the use in me crying if I'm not even trying to make the change I wanna see. I can't sit and hope, I can't just sit and pray that I can find a love when all I see is pain. I fall into my knees, and though I do believe, I can't just breathe, baby, breathe. I can't just breathe, baby, breathe. And heaven knows I'm not helpless. But what can I do? Yeah, can't see the use in me crying if I'm not even trying to make the change I wanna see. I can't sit and hope, I Can't just sit and pray that